Okay, I am back, and I thought I would show you something a little different than a normal tutorial, because I've already got the logic done. I don't really feel like remaking it, because it's pretty intense. This little pretty background, actually, I technically made this. Makes me look like a freaking artist, I suppose, but not really make it. It's a site, I think it's called ArtBreeder or something like that, where you can take landscapes and meld them together and enhance like vegetation and trees and so forth, and you can kind of dick around and do stuff. And I was playing with that and I got something like this, and I thought it was pretty cool. I don't know if it really matches the game too well, but we will see. So anyways, first I'll show you what I have. So this is I should probably go full screen for this. Oh, now I totally screwed everything up. Let's try that again. Alright, so right now, okay, now it kicked in. So these buttons aren't here in the beginning, it's just a blank thing because this is using multiplayer, right? It's using Pun, or Pun2. So until it connects to the master client, nothing shows up. It waits for that to happen. Now when that happens, I get these slots here, and I've still got some things to build, and it plays music. I should probably almost turn that down. So you have these slots, and I've still got to work on some UI here, but I could say click on a person, and I have this effect. And I made this just with GIMP for art. It's just a mask, and I use a render texture. Oops. Right, so I can go and I can say delete characters. I can create new characters, and we have essentially this kind of thing. You know, like this is classic, I don't know what you call it, character customization style, right? And I might add a few other things like scale and stuff, but I've also added things like this. Like I can adjust the hair color just by sliders if I want something funky, or I can use some presets that I made, such as that. I can do the same thing with the skin if I wanted something funky there. You know, I can go, but I've also got some presets here, right? Then I can also, I made these in A-Sprite, so I can go male or female. You'll notice as I change this guy actually changes, and that's because the amount of brows available to the different sexes is different. There's just a couple more for the female. So let's say, you know, then I might finish creation, which it doesn't do anything. So let's call this guy Joe Bob. I create. So now I can create more. I can click on Joe Bob and I can see him. And I can create another one. Well, maybe we'll make this one a female. Facial hair obviously doesn't do anything with the female. You know, maybe we'll make her something different. I don't know. Give her something like that, maybe. What's a female name? Jolene. Bobby? Sure. Right. So now I can go on Joe Bob. I go back. Right, they're both there. I can keep creating them. If I click on one and hit start, this I'm still doing some work on, but this is a room listing. Obviously there's no rooms, and I can say my game. Now it loads into the other scene. Now, as you can see, like there's no camera, there's no logic on the player yet, but if I look into the player, you'll see he has our exact what we have. Okay, and if I do a build and run, anytime now. Okay, and I'm also in the URP. Not that that really matters. Okay, so here we have this. Now I've still got them there because that's how I built it, which is fine, right? So let's go Joe Bob, and let's start. And we'll say my demo game, go start. Right, so he's standing there. Now, meanwhile, on this client, you know, he loads up, and we'll say the female. We'll hit start. Now we can see my demo game here, right? And I can either make a new game or I can go join this one. So I join this one, and if I just bring these up, you can see I can see both clients and how they. You can kind of see. Obviously, I can't move them over, but they are different, right? That's so they kept all their customization and they linked it to each client. Actually, you know what I should be able to do? Let's see if I can do it. I should be able, because these guys should. I don't know if I put it in or not. No, I must not have put it in. Well, anyways, so they're linked though, right? There's no logic in the game point of view on this yet. Well, I thought I'd show you how I did that. So first I'll show you the player. Right, so this is our default player. He's used for everything. I'm going to get rid of that because I don't feel like looking at it. There's no real logic on it. Like he's got the photon stuff, right? Obviously, but beyond that, like he's got no movement or anything. So in his body visuals. And I'll go through each FSM slowly, and that way if you wanted to pause it or whatever to look at it. But first I'll explain. So here is an empty, doesn't do frickin' anything. We have these guys here are for the character creation system. So if they get the event of brow, they take this incoming variable, which you'll see how that gets here. And I do an int math repeat, which that actually might be a custom action, and that way, if I were to run like a 20, it would show up as a 10. If I run like a 19, it shows up as a 9. You don't necessarily need this one here. I had it in the beginning, so I wasn't too sure which way I was going to go with this. But I do have the repeat here as well. So there's A and B as the results. That's because there's the female and male difference. And I get the child of the eyebrows, this guy here, all of these things, and I'm just going to get the index of A, and I'm going to get the child index of the female eyebrows, current eyebrow 2. We're going to activate solo on both of those. So which, if I select one from a slider, it'll do, say, this one, and deactivate everything else. But it also does the female one and deactivate everything else. Right? So pretty basic. And the sex is kind of the same idea. I do the same thing, only obviously it's a much smaller scale. There's only 2, and I just do a switch. I mean, you can do a compare as well, and I just activate male parts, deactivate female, or vice versa. The head, same idea. It's a much larger one, so I get the child elements. Same idea. I store it and I activate solo. I also do the same for the female based on that same number. Activate solo, and there's an equal number of heads for male and female, so I only had to get E. I didn't need 2 numbers like I did on this one where it has A and B. I just needed E. So the beard, obviously this one doesn't play an effect to the female. There's nothing there, but for the male, it just same thing, gets a number, activates it. Hair, same idea, activates it. The pun build is this really crazy long thing. So I get an event info for pun data. Now this actually comes from a RPC broadcast all, and I take this array that I'm not using yet, and I make sure it's clear, so it's 0. And then I'm going to split this data, and I'll show you how I build that data after, but I split it by this thing, the slash. You can technically use anything, but that's how I'm splitting it. And then I get the very first array, like the array index 0, which I know is the ID. And then I get my ID of this player, right, which will be from this thing, his ID. And I check these IDs, and if they're equal, this is the same idea as is mine, then I go. So then I get number 1, and I know that I set that as the sex. I get number 2, I know that's facial hair, number 3, and so forth. And I keep going down. With ones like this one, I just use 1, 2, and 3. Those are actually for colors. And I convert those into floats. I call it HB, which stands for hair blue, hair green, hair red. And then I set a color variable with those 3 numbers. Okay. Again, I do the same thing, but with the skin color. And then I continue on getting the hair, and I keep kind of doing this process. I don't know why I have the repeat here. That's weird. Oh yeah, yes I do. Okay, so once I get that, then again, I really don't need this repeat here, but I get the number and I activate solo. So kind of like it is up here, but put in now into this one long line. Right, so we're gonna, literally the exact same logic is here. Right, we get the eyebrow, you know, the male and female, and we activate solo. We get the child of them. At the end though, in this guy here, and I'll show you this one, this is a colossal chaos. We set skin color and hair color by whatever these values were, right, from here. So then, once we set the color, we do that same switch, do the male to female, female to male. This I'm still kind of playing with, I got it deactivated right now, so don't worry about it. In the materials, I wanted to, and I know this one looks nuts, and I don't have anything labeled, but it's all the same thing kind of repeating itself. So because of this model, the way it is, you have all these tons of submodels in here, right? Tons and tons and tons of them, all these different things. And all these things all have a material, right? These things all have materials. Everything here has material. So what I wanted to do is right at the beginning, I take just one item at random. It really doesn't matter. I take one item and I get its material. I'm going to use that as my base. Like I said, it really doesn't matter. You can choose anything here as long as you get a base material. And then I'm going to set a material value to these two other materials that don't have values. And I'm going to use the base I just grabbed. So now I have a hair material and I have a skin material. But these are now instances, right? They're not coming from here. Which is why you can have a bunch of different characters. You can change colors and it doesn't affect them all. It only affects this one. So then what I do is I literally loop through. I grab all the children of the hair. Right? I grab all of these children. I'll also put one here for bald. But I grab all its children, and then I set on that child, I change the material to this hair material. All right, on every single one. And then I go through the next one. I grab the torso. You know, I grab the upper arm. I grab the other upper arm, and I just kind of, I go through and I grab all these root things that have all of these things in them. So I'm more or less grabbing every single child that has a renderer, and I'm changing their material to use this instance material, right? So these ones are all using the skin material. And then once in a while, because of the number of them, and I didn't feel like raising the value, but because of the number, and on an FSM, you have, where is it? This guy, this loop override. So if you hit 1,000 or more, you get that error for like for an infinite loop, right? And you can raise that. And I could just stick this to like 3,000, and then kind of put this all into one. But whatever. I'm not that worried about it. So once in a while, you'll see a little side guy just thrown in here for a next frame event, right? Like there's one there, there's one there, and I think that's it. Just to help break things up, so I'm not worried about that. So it takes 3 frames, and I go through every single renderer of this thing, and I changed all of its instances to this copied instance. And then at the very end, when it's all said and done, I get colors from this guy, and I think I actually made these actions, and I set colors. So I'm going to set my skin material, its skin color, which if you look on the material itself, see how you have these? So I'm using these words to adjust these. Now these aren't exactly the same words, and that's because technically the ones I'm using, if you look into their materials, there's a shader graph one, and that's the one I'm using because I'm URP. And if I go to their shaders, shader graph, these are the values that I'm actually changing, right? So underscore color hair, right? So those are the ones I'm using. So I change those colors according to whatever color is in these ones in the body visual. And that's pretty much all the player does. Okay, so that's the player. Just keep that in mind. Now if I go into the PlayMaker proxy, like the main photon thing, there's a couple things here. I threw my next frame in because I like doing that. So we connect to online, right? Connect using settings. Okay, cool. That throws this event, and I go to a next frame event. So every now and then it would give me an error if I didn't do this, and then I would join a lobby right away. I don't use a name, I don't use a type, I just join a lobby. And what that does is when you're in a lobby, you get the room update lists. If you're not in a lobby, you can't get it. So just connecting to the master doesn't cut it. You need to join a lobby. And you can use lobbies for numerous things. For me, I'm just using it as a default thing, so pretty much every game that goes on, everyone's just going to join the same lobby, and then there'll just be a bunch of different rooms, which is actually relatively common for Photon. So on Photon join lobby, then I start turning on my UI, right? And I tell my system to start, set up its slots. Then I run my background music, and I got the volume turned down a bit. Okay, we'll get to this one after. So that's that main thing. Now my canvas itself, there's a background image. It's all nice and pretty. I've got some empties that are just to help me organize things into. So after connection, this one turns on. It doesn't look like it because there's nothing there, right? Because it needs character slots, which is where those 3 pop up. They become childs of this. So what is a slot? Well, if I go into here, here, and that is a new game, right? Just like that. So this one obviously doesn't do anything. There, as you can see, there's literally no logic on this thing whatsoever. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. It's literally just there to look pretty. We also get a start button. You can see it down here. Turn that back off. We get our character creation window, which can come up. This is actually, it starts off though. We also get a back button. Alright, so that's after we've connected. So, and this is all just UI. Now the actual start game one, we have our scroll view. So, if there's 50 games in here, you can scroll through this like a normal scroll view, and that's just a, you can just use those like this as a scroll view, right? You can set them up any way you want. Get rid of that. Alright, so I have a join game button. Even though it's not actually a join game, this is actually for a new game. That's why it says new game on it, and then you give it a game name. And so there's some work here I got to do first, like save slots and stuff. That's the actual button to it, the input, really nothing there. This is just a list, which also has no logic to it. So the only logic that does this part, PlayMaker falls flat on for now. I know Gene's working on it, but I have, and this part of the logic isn't done. Apparently Cinti's doing a pile of upgrades. So right here I have this guy here, which has a join game, right? Which if I stick him here, it's what pops up over here, right? And it's just, there's a button and some text. Now this one does have a tiny bit of logic, is if you join this game, right? So if we click on it, it gets this name, and we join that room. That's it. We just get the name, join room, if you click on it. So what actually makes it though, and what sets the name, is in here, and this logic isn't done. This is very Skeleton Crew style shit here. Is I use mono behavior callbacks. so I can get this on room list update. So if that list changes, this gets called on everything that's watching it. So then I just turn on and be like, okay, for each room info in this room list that gets called, let's create our join room object and child it to this transform, which is like that content box. And then we're gonna find a child of this created thing called game name, and then the text component of this guy is now going to be this room info's name. So essentially what that does is for every room info that comes on to Photon of this game, when this system picks it up, it finds that game, and it creates one of these, puts it into a list here. And if you look, if I put a few of them in here, I'm also using a vertical layout group, right? So I can put a whole bunch of these in and they just go down. You can scroll this. It creates one of these for every game that is in there. And then it also finds this game name and it changes its text from, right now it says new text, changes that to the game room name. So when you hit join game, it joins this room. And that's about the only logic that I created for it, other than maybe those couple actions. So this guy here's got a pile of logic, and this is where things will be kind of crazy. So I'll start with the simple ones first. We have sound. Oh, I think I forgot to put sugar in my coffee. Crap. So anyways, I got 5 sound things, right? And they're just random sounds that I wanted for my UI. Right? Simple things. Nothing major. That one's obviously a little bigger. And I just use these little simple events, sound 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I use a block events because when, for example, with this one, if you're moving a slider and that slider has that sound, well, you can whip that slider back and forth pretty freaking quick. And I don't want this thing firing off, 80 times in 1 second. So I block events by using block event. I use until false. So I set this value true. It plays. When it's done, it goes here, and we set it false. Now I can get another sound, right? So I can only get so many sounds. And I do that for all of them. So they're all just a bunch of different sounds that I want to use for my UI. I just put them all into one place. Pretty simple so far. The options adjust is if I get this event called mail, I'm going to adjust this slider from this creation window. This slider here to a max value of 10, and if it's a female, I drop it to 7. And that's just because in the models there's a different number of things it can be. So I don't want to have it that if you have a value of 8 or 9 and you swap over and also choose the female, 8 or 9 is now going to throw you an error. So this kind of helps prevent all that. So very, very simple, right? All right, turn that off, and right, so very simple so far. Now this is where things get nuts. Let's go to the top one. All right, pretty big FSM. Actually, and both these are. These 2 FSMs are workhorses. So in the very beginning, we're going to get master, and master is a global variable. So now everything can find this thing really easy. So we have set slots, and if you remember, in this guy, once we've joined a lobby, which happens right after we connect the master, we join lobby, we send an event to set slots, right? So that's the first thing that happens. So we set slots. So we have this variable called name, and I'm going to set the value to nothing. And I'm going to load, and I'm using easy save. So I'm using load slot 1 name, and I'm going to store the name or the value into name. Now I do have error handling, so if there's an error, it does finished. If you don't have this and this doesn't exist, you will get an error. Right? So we're going to load it. And then I'm going to check. Okay, so does name, is it null or empty? If it is, we're going to start a new game here. If it's not, it has a character. So if we start a new game, we're going to create a new game object, which is that thing I think I showed you earlier. This guy, which has no logic, right? That's this thing here, literally just there, right? So we create one of those, we parent it to our special little holder that puts it all in place for us. We're going to add it into a array. That way we can keep track of what's there. We're going to find a child of this slot, this thing, called delete, which, as you can guess, is this guy here. We call him delete1. Now we're going to deactivate delete1, because if this is a new game, you can't delete the new game. There's nothing there to delete. Now we set bool value slot 1 empty as false. In reality, if you think about it logically, it should be true, but whatever. And then we go into here. So if it has a character though, if there is a name here, then we create that same object, we add it to the array. Now I find child name of text, which is actually this guy, and we call it slot text. I then take the name that we were testing here, and I'm going to stuff it in to this value. I set bool value to true now, and I find child delete1. I don't do anything with it, I just find it. So I have reference now to this button and this button and the text that's in here. And the text that's in here is now the name of the slot, the load. Now slot 2 does the same thing, but it uses slot 2 name. You know, beyond that, it's identical. Slot 3 does slot 3 name, identical. But it's kind of important to note that, like, when I store, like, I find child, I do delete 3, right? So we find the 3 buttons and we find the 3 delete buttons. So down in button inputs, we use a huge button array of 8 buttons. We use slot 1, which is the button from here, and we give it a slot 1 event. We use slot 2, slot 3, right? Buttons from here and here. We also use delete 1, 2, 3, right? From here, here, and here. Then we have a start and back, which I haven't shown you those yet. So if we hit slot 1, if we hit the slot 1 button, we come up and we check that one bool where it's this guy here. Slot 1 empty is false. And slot 1 empty is true. So we check that, and if it's false, we're going to play this. Actually, we play this. No, we do play a different sound. Like we just play a sound through our little UI guy, but then we set a string in the next FSM of the current slot that we were looking at as slot 1 name. And then we send an event to that system saying we want a new character. This one does the same thing, slot 1 name, but it sends a different event called select character, and it sets the name in there for like a different name, and then it waits for an input of the back and the start, right? And that's these two. Like if we're into the character creation mode, let's get rid of the start game UI. Let's get rid of that because we don't need him. Oh, I don't have them activated right now. But like these two, like these two become active, right? Start and back. So I wait for those inputs, because if we're creating the character, we can get, you know, some inputs happening. Yeah. But yeah, so that's the same logic for all three of these. The same idea. Right, we just test to see if we're using a new or empty, right? We're going to set names, and then we do select character or new character. If we do delete, I do a sound. I save. I do a save into the slot 1 name with another string variable that is empty called delete save. Now, and it's empty, so there's nothing here. So that when it comes back up here, it won't be anything here, so it's going to show up as a new game. And then I send an event called reset, which is up here, which I'll get to that in a second. All right, and same thing with delete 2 and delete 3. Right, so if you hit the, well, yeah, if you're over here, if you hit the back button, it sends a clear down to the other one. So I'll get to that. So the reset, we just go through all the slots that are currently out there, possibly, and we delete them. We don't want them anymore. And when we're done, we're going to resize our slots. We're going to clear out our save variables for names, and then we come back and just redo the whole thing all over again. So that's how that part of the UI works. The big one though is this guy here. As you see, so here's that clear. We're just gonna destroy a current player, and then we're gonna reset our UI, just activating this, like the slots, closing down our character creation. All right, so if we get a new character, we're going to check for this current player, and if we need to destroy it, then we'll destroy it if there's something there, right? If it's not null. If it's not null, then we come down, and we can now we set in all of these values, the name, these values, the colors, whatever, all that stuff. We're going to set that all to a default value, right? We set the name to empty, we set all these to zeros. Now we activate it or deactivate these buttons. We turn on our options, which is all this stuff. Turn off our character slots because we don't want to see them right now. We create a player, and we store them as the current player. Then we just come down and we get these colors from these two. I'll show you those in a second. There's a little bit of logic on those. But beyond that, all we do is we're just looking for slider value changes now. So if this value changes, you slide it over, you know, the hair slider changes, and it gives us a value, right? For example, the hair, and then we just go and we send an event to our player, or we set the hair value, and then we send the event hair. And if you remember on our player, right, like something like our hair, we just now we're going to get the child value. So we're more or less getting the child value based on what the slider is, and we activate solo. Right, very almost simple when you really think about it, but right, but I mean, and that's really it all. It's the same thing for all these things. We're just looking at the slider values. We get the value, and we send an event down to the actual player that we've created in the world, that we have another camera watching, actually, which is why he pops up here, or how he pops up here. I can show you that in a second too. Right, and then we just say, okay, well, are we a male or female right now? Because if we're a male, or if we're going to female, we need to adjust those options. If we're, you know, send the male or send the female. That way we can adjust that one max value. So there's all our inputs just on the sliders, and then we have a done button. There's another sound. So everything comes back, it goes through a sound and then goes in. So this is, we do another sound when we actually hit the done button. We get the name, and we save to the current slot, which is what comes from here. When we select the slot, we're going to save that name. And now we have to build a whole bunch of keys. So we're going to take the current slot and head. We store it in head save. And we keep doing this to all the different values here of the current slot, and then whatever it is. Current slot, whatever it is. Current slot, whatever it is. So forth. And then we're just going to run through, and we're going to save into these keys those values. And then when we're done, activate our character slots, turn off our creation system, tell the system to reset, and go back in this guy to reset, go back here and redo it. We are done creating a new character. If we select a character, however, we do that same thing where we're going to check for the player, because if there's still one there, we want to destroy it. If not, you know, set up our UI, create a player, current player. Now we do the same thing where we build a whole bunch of keys off of that current slot and the name, current slot and name, all over again, just like we did with the save. And now we load key beard slave into beard. Now when we're done, I do the same thing as kind of what these do here. As they, like when we change that slider value, we send it, off it goes. We change this guy, off it goes. We do the same thing, but we do it rapid fire. You know, now that we've loaded those keys, or the values from the keys, now we set it, send it. Set it, send it, set it, send it. And we go through them all and call it good. And then there's the clear. So that's kind of how that system works so far. And if I go into this guy, I'll show you this. So there is a little bit of logic here, not much. Here I just have presets where I just tell these sliders more or less to go to certain values. And I literally just went and Googled, like, say, like, color or skin color RGB values, which is a pain because I was using sliders of 0 to 1 and RGB values are 0 to 255. So you go to something like this and you're dealing with something like this online, you know, and like, oh, okay, this is your color. You're like, okay, well, I don't want those. I want the, so you have to put those in as a 255. Then I just swapped it over. Okay, these are the values I want, right? But that's kind of how those presets work. And then again, these guys just have button arrays, right? So if I hit button 1, use preset 1. Hit button 2, use preset 2. Hit button 3, use preset 3. And then I also use preset 1 just as a start. It really doesn't matter, you can put it anywhere. Skin color does the exact same logic, only it runs off of this guy, not this one. The done has a tiny bit of logic, because in order to hit this button, we want to have a name here. So this guy actually starts you can't interact with him, right? So we get the text, we get the length of the text, and we do a compare. And if that thing needs to be over 3 letters long, if it is, we go over here and we're going to make it so it's interactable. But we keep testing it, and if it goes below 3, we go back over here. Now it's not interactable again. So we're always guaranteeing we're going to have a name here of at least 3 letters if we're going to hit this finish button. All right. The other thing is on this character creation. See, there's a little bit of logic here, and all that is when we turn it on, we're going to interpolate this one camera. I'll show you this camera in a second. From 90 to 30, and we set that into the FOV, so we get kind of that zoom effect. And I can show you again when we start. So we have the main camera here, which I'm using for the UI, but we have another camera here. So this little scene, actually I ripped off from the demo scene because I just wanted something as a bit of a background, right? So when the character gets created, he gets created, and I don't bother changing his position. I literally just, like if he goes to 0, 0, 0, I set this camera up, and I moved the train and the camera to make sure it lines up with the player when he's at this position. And then this camera feeds into a render texture, which I up the resolution, and the render texture feeds into character display. So there's a mask on it that I made, but it feeds into this raw image. Right, so it feeds into this. Right, and if I disable my mask, it's actually just a big square image, which doesn't look very flattering. So I masked it out with my mask. I was making a bunch of them, they weren't quite good enough, which is why I got 3 of them sitting here. But it's literally just, there was black and white. Nothing special. So let's turn that off. Okay, I think everything is somewhat normal again. So now that you've seen the logic, see it's waiting, we've connected. So I can go new character, it sets all that stuff up, and you see how that camera zoomed in, right? So we set our stuff. So these values are being fired right into this player, and this player is controlling himself. Right? We hit our presets. Now I can't hit this finish creation, but if I adjust this, the brow changes because we have that slight difference. I can now put a name in, finish creation, right? So it deletes that player, it deletes all of this stuff, it resets everything, comes back and rebuilds everything. Super fast, you can't even see it, right? So now if I click on them, it hides that. Loads, uses easy save, loads all that data in, creates his character and rebuilds him, right? And now I can see, I can get back and start, back, go to these ones, back, and we have those sound effects playing as well. But you see how the camera zooms in every time, right? And if I hit start and go to this screen, this button, again, same type of idea. I can't click on it until we have a game name of a decent size. I now hit start. we load in, and now our character doesn't have anything. There's no level, no logic here. So that is, so far, a character creation system using Pun that syncs the data over, oh yeah, there's still one more thing to show you, over the network. So one other thing, and this is key on how we actually sync things. So in this guy, we have, if we join rooms, so if we hit create, if we do a new game, or if we click over here, either one, this event fires. And what do? We're going to go to the master, where this guy is, where that crazy logic is all sitting at, and we're going to get all the values that we were just playing with. So we're going to get them all. Just grab everything we can, and we're going to Pun set player custom property, hair, type float, hair, head, brow, beard. We set it all in. The only one that it doesn't like is colors. I'm guessing it's like also like a vector 3. It doesn't like those either. So we get the color RGB, and I break it up. Hair red, hair green, hair blue. Skin red, skin green, skin blue. And we set those. Now we have properties for the HR, the HG, the HB. You know, for everything we just create all these properties. Now we load our level. And when the level loads, we, on the other side, we instantiate our player with Pun instantiate. And this thing gets turned on. And when he gets turned on, he does a small wait. For some reason, I need a wait here. If I don't put a wait here, it doesn't work. Now we're just going to get all our properties back. We're going to say, okay, we need the head, we need the hair, we need all this fun stuff. We need all that same things we just set. We're going to get our ID. And I'm going to now convert everything into strings. So sex becomes sex string. Beard into beard string, brow into brow string. So everything gets converted into a string, and then I build a string. I use ID, and then I put all those strings in, and I use that for my separator, and then I broadcast to all buffered, make sure it's buffered, and I send that one big string that has all this stuff. So this guy, when he gets this event now, we get that info, we make sure our array is empty, we split it by that same value, and now we get the ID, which I know is in the first slot. I get my photon view ID, and I compare if they're equal to what I want from this event, which I think is the same as mine. You can almost use the same thing, but then I get index 1 of the array, and I know it's the sex. I get index 2, and I know it's the facial hair. I get index 3, I know it's the eyebrow, right? And that, which is kind of a pain, because that means when you build it from here, the order you put these things in this guy, right, is the same order I need to be pulling them out into the same variable. So you have to, like, okay, so, you know, copy this right over, so you have the order, and I'm pulling them all out, and, you know, and I'm, you know, with the color ones, and then now I convert the string into floats, use the floats into a color, and I've now created my hair color. So you pull everything from this big long array, right? And then you do that same thing as you did up here with these things from the character creation, but in a rapid succession, right? After you've pulled them all out, pulled out all the data. Now at this stage here, now let's use the data we're just pulled out up above us to start activating everything. Right, set all the colors, set everything down, And then at the end, I'm going to have these turn off because I'm not going to need them anymore for now. But that's how we can sync our character creation to our players, to all our clients. So hopefully you learned something from that. Different style tutorial, I know. Anyways, I'll talk to you guys later.